Welcome to Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast that brings Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
Hey everyone, welcome to Sports Spectrum. I am Jason Romano. We are presented by IJM, the International Justice Mission, helping to protect more than 150 million people from violence worldwide. Learn more about the great work they're doing by going to their website, ijm.org/TF, and join the fight to end slavery in our lifetime today. Very excited to bring to you a conversation I had just a couple days ago with Chase Daniel. He's now with the Detroit Lions, and you may have missed that actually because Chase has been in the league a long time, 11-year NFL veteran, getting ready to start year 12, and he's been with the Saints, the Chiefs, the Eagles, back with the Saints, the last few years with the Bears, and then in 2020 during free agency period, just about a month or so ago, Chase signed virtually, as he'll tell you, with the Detroit Lions and is now a member of the Lions as a quarterback there with Matthew Stafford and all that the Lions have going on in Detroit. Chase Daniel is there. In college, he was at Missouri, and he was the 2007 Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. He was a Heisman Trophy finalist. Interestingly enough, though, 2 years later, he goes undrafted in 2009, but he signs with the New Orleans Saints, and what does he do? Well, he wins a Super Bowl in his first season in the NFL, Super Bowl 44 with the Saints. That was the Drew Brees Super Bowl MVP year when they beat the Colts. And he played 4 years with the Saints, went over to the Chiefs, played 3 seasons there, and then a very poignant year for him in 2016 with the Philadelphia Eagles, which Chase will talk about here on the show. Back to the Saints in 17. He was with the Bears from 2018 to 2019, the last 2 seasons, and then now with Detroit. He's also delving into the world of broadcasting as he started his own show. We talk about this right here in the beginning of the podcast as well. It's called Chase Chats. It's online on social media. You can follow him. He's had Nick Foles and Darren Sproles. He's had Zach and Julie Ertz as guests. Obviously, Chase knows a lot of people, so he has the ability to get some pretty big name guests, and it's a lot of fun to watch him do his show. So let's get to it. Take a listen to Chase Daniel, Detroit Lions quarterback, and he joins us here today on Sports Spectrum. Pleased to be joined here on Sports Spectrum by Chase Daniel, Detroit Lions quarterback. Chase, does that sound weird still?
It does. It does. I can't believe that, going to my 12th year, this will be, I think, the 6th team. So it's getting used to, and it doesn't really seem real because we did everything virtually and, signed the contract virtually. We haven't even visited the facility or the town or anything like that, but I'm used to it, and Detroit Lions quarterback is correct.
Well, congratulations, first of all. It's always great to sign a new deal and have another opportunity to play in the NFL. But this quarantine, you talked about doing everything virtually. Not only have you signed with a new team, but you've become sort of this broadcaster, dare I say, and starting your own online show, Chase Chats. Can you tell us where that itch became something that you wanted to scratch and start this show?
Yeah, I was just working out one day in the quarantine in my I say home gym, but it's like a very small piece of my garage that is have a few weights, and was just thinking what do people need right now, and what do people want, and what type of content can we bring? And I've always been super interested in the broadcast realm. My wife was a broadcast major at the University of Missouri, and she anchored the news for 3 or 4 years post college. And it was just popped in my head. I know a lot of people around the league.
Sure.
And because I've been on so many teams, I've played for, going on 12 years, and it'd be cool to just catch up with them and see what they're doing and how they're doing and what are they doing to stay sane during this quarantine. How has it affected their life, so forth and so on. And so, yeah, it's sort of grown into something that we can have fun with.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, actually. I've watched the first couple episodes. The one you did with Nick Foles was fantastic, and it was a lot of coffee talk, which I'm not a coffee drinker, so it was a little maybe too much coffee talk for me, but it was fun to just kind of it felt like I was peeking behind the curtain and listening in on what Nick and Chase would be talking about if they were just having a call on the phone. Is that kind of what you were hoping for?
That's exactly what I was hoping for. And it was just sort of something to where I'm not a media member. I'm still a player, and just like a FaceTime with your bro and just catch up and see what's happening. How's your life going? And I think, Nick did a great job of really just opening up. He shared a lot of things that he maybe wouldn't have shared if it was, somebody from ESPN or Fox or some of these major networks, just because he knows me, we have a relationship.
Yep.
And we just talked about things that we would normally talk to on the phone. And I think the raw and organic nature of those type of conversations are what people want. So that's what I was trying to do. And it's going well so far.
I love it. It looks like you got a professional microphone and everything. Look at you.
Yeah, I had some advice on some equipment with what to get. So I'm not quite at your standard right now with that nice little mic, but I got something that works for us.
No, it sounds great. It looks great. And people should definitely check it out. They can find it on YouTube. They can check out your social media pages, just at Chase Daniel on Twitter, and it's on IG as well. And it's a lot of fun to watch and kind of see you doing this. It's funny, when I think back, you and I met actually when you were just coming out of college, going into the NFL. And you did the ESPN car wash way back when, 2000 and whatever year it was, 2009, I think. And now to see you kind of doing this makes me think maybe that's something you might want to do post-career someday. Is that a fair assessment?
I think that's pretty fair to say. I did something at the beginning of this offseason, was able to go up to ESPN and do a couple live hits on SportsCenter, which was eye-opening for me, and do a bunch of shows there. Not necessarily a car wash, but just like talk about the league and really the playoffs. And I think, this year's playoffs were interesting because I had been on a lot of the teams. And so it was cool to go up there and talk. They invited me up there. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and I think it went pretty well. And a lot of people are like, oh, you should, coach, or you should do this. And I'm like, I don't want to be away from my family any longer than I already am. And as you can tell, with everything going virtually, you can sort of do this sort of thing at your home. So you get the family time that's much needed and important to me.
What would you normally be doing around this time? Letting people know we're taping this around mid-April. What would you normally be doing around this time that you can't do because of the quarantine?
Well, it's an interesting situation. And this is sort of what I'm talking to about, with all my guests on Chase Chats is, for me personally, I was a free agent this year. And it's such a weird time. I've been through free agency a lot because we switch teams a lot. And usually what we do the first weekend of free agency, I think it was March 16th or March 18th, like that Wednesday, I'm not sure what day it was, you would talk to these teams, and the next day they would fly you in, you and your family, and you would do a signing at the facility. You would do press at the facility. You would get a tour of the facility. You would be able to tour the surrounding neighborhoods to try and find where to live and where to place some roots for the short time. And none of that has happened. And so we're like doing these virtual tours, from these realtors, trying to find these houses that we like and trying to find the right neighborhood. And we've had a lot of, advice from people, but it's weird to just not be able to actually be on the ground and to tour these neighborhoods, make sure they're safe, make sure so forth and so on. So that's normally what we would have done back then. And like now we would be, it's April 8th, I think.
Yeah.
And we would be going to, phase 1 of OTAs in like 12 days. So we would probably be moving into the new house that we have. We don't have the house. So we still have our place in Chicago. We put that on the market. We're trying to sell that during this time. We're trying to get another house and secure housing in Detroit. So it's a lot of stuff going on. And it can be stressful at times, but that's mainly what I would be doing. We would probably be moving into the new place right now.
Interesting. Chase Daniel is our guest here on Sports Spectrum. Let me ask you about, the intersection of sports and faith, which is what we are here. What's the Lord been showing you during this quarantine time? Has there been something that he's been kind of impressing on your heart during this time where we've all kind of been cooped up and locked up and can't really go out and do anything?
Yeah, patience, as you can tell, in a lot of different aspects. I think that by far is the number one thing God's put on my heart. And I've constantly been in prayer about it because it's tough. We have 2 kids, a 2.5-year-old who wants to run crazy and run wild. We're cooped up in a small house, and we have a 2-month-old baby girl. Yeah. So it's a family of 4, right? So my wife and I are playing man-to-man defense on who gets who and how to do that. And then we're trying to still get them outside because we're in California, and for the most part, it's nice. But at the same time, my sort of job in this whole free agency thing is to, the housing search and to try to move into a place and try to make stuff work. And I'm just sort of like, hey, I need to just give it to God and just let go. It'll work out as it's supposed to, and just be patient. This is a season in our life that's, it's weird times, and it's not going to last forever. And I have to realize that. And, I struggle with it day to day, but that's probably the number one thing that the Lord has put on my heart is just say, be patient. I got you. I will hold your hand through this whole thing, and everything will be okay.
Does the uncertainty of the lifestyle of an NFL player, which is just uncertain, it's year to year, it's not for long, the acronym, all these things that come with being an NFL player, you mentioned the different teams that you played on, does that world and having lived in it for so many years help you cope with something like what we're going through now that's so uncertain for so many of us?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think it's difficult with everything that's going on right now. But at the same time, to know that, the Lord has our hand in everything that we do, and that he's going to lead us in the right direction. And so what we're doing right now is just trying to be patient with everything and let everything play out as it is. Hey, yeah. Preston, there's
Bella.
Oh, we got a little guest here. That's hi. Preston.
Yeah.
Hi, Preston.
Hi, say hi. Can you go find Mama for me?
No, Bella.
It's okay. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. What is that? Like in the Chase chat world, that is a real moment, right?
Real. Yeah.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, we're glad that he got to join us for a little bit.
Yeah. He's great.
Let me ask you about your faith. Where does that take shape and kind of really kind of become an important part of your life as you're growing up? I know you grew up in Texas, or at least was from Texas, went to high school there, had a lot of success, then went to Missouri. Where's the faith component really start to take shape for you?
For me, growing up, we went to we went to church every Sunday. We weren't overly religious family, and I went to church because it was fun to hang out with people and to see some friends. And throughout college, I sort of lost like that sort of urge to go to church and to be involved, because we were so heavily involved in football. I put my faith in football. Multiple Big 12 North championships, you're up for the Heisman, everything's great, and sort of lose touch in college. But I think the turning point for me in my life was meeting my wife. And I met her in 2007 when I was a junior, but we didn't start dating until like 2011. And I just saw something in her and something in her family that I wanted, that I felt like I was missing, and that was the Lord. And everything that she did, it was just sort of, it was just amazing. Like I wanted that. And now that's how I try to live now for a lot of these people that look up to me is, hey, there's something different about that cat. What is that? Well, I have Jesus Christ in my heart. And I think that to me is something that's really big. And my wife sort of helped me throughout the journey. It's always been, there's been bumps along the way. It hasn't been great. I haven't had any, oh my gosh, this happened to me stories. It was literally meeting my wife and wanting to recommit to, Jesus Christ. And I think that for me has been the biggest thing. And she pushes me to not only be a better person, but also to be a better husband, a better Christian. She challenges me. I mean, she is just like, she's awesome. And I think that to me probably was like the turning point.
We'll get back to our conversation with Chase in just a second, but want to tell you about our friends at IJM, the International Justice Mission, helping to protect more than 150 million people from violence and oppression around the world. They do such great work, but they need your help. They can't do this work alone. So I'm reaching out to you to consider joining them and becoming a Freedom Partner. They're some of IJM's most loyal partners in the work of justice, and their support, your support, of $24 or more each month helps survivors of slavery and violence from the moment they're rescued until they are fully restored. It may not seem like a lot to give, but it really is life-changing. So I'm going to encourage you to join me in being a freedom partner. It really does make a huge difference. Join the fight by going to ijm.org/TF, ijm.org/TF, and become a freedom partner today. Now back to our conversation with Chase Daniel, now with the Detroit Lions, joining us here on Sports Spectrum. You played on a lot of teams, as you mentioned. You came in with the Saints, won a Super Bowl your rookie year. So that's like, okay, is this what it's going to be like every year? Winning a Super Bowl, and clearly not, because that's the only Super Bowl you have on your resume. It's still your Super Bowl, though. But then you go to the Chiefs, and then the Eagles for a year, the Saints for a year, Bears for a couple of years, and now Detroit. Walk me through the evolution of your faith in those locker rooms through your career and your journey. Certainly coming in, you don't want to ruffle any feathers your rookie year probably, but what is that like, the evolution of your faith from a football playing perspective?
Yeah, it's been great. And that's a great question, because different locker rooms are at different times and different places in their walks with faith. And there's different, when you go, you sort of know who the Christian leaders are and sort of who guys flock to. And in New Orleans, the first like 4 or 5 years of my career, I wouldn't say it's non-existent, but it was a very small portion of the locker room during that time from 09 to 12 that were outspoken. And maybe it was more than I knew, but I didn't necessarily, I went to chapel on Saturday night, but there was no couples Bible study. There was nothing else like that, where we really saw just a really huge intersection of, our faith and football was in Kansas City. And we had a group of like 7 or 8 couples that not only would get together for a game night, but also have couples Bible study every Monday night. It would switch houses. We would have, barbecue or food or whatever it was. We'd have a lesson, whether it be going through a book, or we would have a pastor come in. And that was every Monday night through the season for 3 straight years. And so that was just like, it felt right. Like it felt like this is what it should be. And then really probably our biggest jump and our biggest leap of faith was going to Philadelphia in 2016. And it's well written. You've interviewed multiple people about the 2016, 2017, 2018 Eagles and their just the men of faith that they have in that locker room.
Yeah.
And what was really cool for us is, I would say, personally, it probably was one of the toughest years of my career, but for my faith, it was probably my strongest. And I say that because we hosted a couples Bible study like on Monday nights, and the guys hosted a Bible study like Wednesday mornings. And then we went Saturday night chapel or Sunday morning chapel. So we were getting it 3 times a week. But what was really cool is the couples Bible study was at our house. And the first week we did it, it was, 3 or 4 couples. And we were like, oh, this is awesome. The last week we did it, I kid you not, there were 18 to 20 couples in our house, and we had to go out and get more seats. And it just like sort of grew and grew and grew. And, they sort of kept that momentum going when we left. In 2017, obviously ended with a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But it was just really cool. Like I look back on that experience and I say, God didn't put me in this place for football necessarily. He put me in it to test my faith and to help me grow my faith. And was one of the coolest things I've seen.
It's interesting too, because people might be like, okay, he played 1 year with Philly and it was kind of like a lost year and they brought Nick Foles in and then they go, but there's impact even in that 1 year. You could see the Lord and how he worked in you for that purpose. They call it in Romans 8:28, for that time to work for good, to be there in Philadelphia and have an influence on the guys that you had on and for them to have an influence on you.
Yeah. And I think that's just, I still look back on that year and we're going into 2020, 4 or 5 years later, like that was sort of a groundbreaking year, not only for my wife and I, sort of newly married, but we we were just so blessed to be able to have that year. I mean, we still talk to multiple people on that team, from, some of our better friends from Jordan and Ivana Hicks. They're now in Arizona, to the Marigoses. They're now, retired, to Zach and Julie Ertz, who's coming on Chase Chats literally right after this. Like, it's just cool. It's cool to see that walk in faith, and it's different for everyone. There's no judgment. And we were just able to get together in fellowship. And I think that was what was really cool.
Last couple questions here with Chase Daniel on Sports Spectrum. I asked this question to Dan Orlovsky about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. You came into the league undrafted, and you made an awesome career. If you played 12 years in the NFL, like, you've had a great career, but you've only had a handful of starts. So you've kind of always been that guy that's come in as a backup and or mentor and helped the team and been a stable guy. But was there ever a point, or where was the point, I should say, where you became okay with being that guy versus wanting to continue to strive to be a starter? Dan told me it was like year 3 or 4 when he was like, all right, if this is my role, I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to be the best darn guy. I'm going to be ready. And if they need me to start, I'm going to be starting and do the best I can. What was that like for you in that evolution of being a quarterback in the NFL and kind of coming into a role that you've now been really, really good at?
Yeah. Honestly, for me, that point is not hit. Like, I still want to be a starter in this league. I feel like I'm 25 years old.
Okay.
Physically, and mentally, I'm in a really good spot, but also understand my role in the team. And for me, at least, I can't speak on anyone else, but when I sort of lose that desire to want to become a starter and to become a contributor on a team, it's probably time to get into the broadcast career, right? So
Sure.
That's sort of how I stay motivated. I don't need a lot of outside motivation. I feel like I'm a highly motivated individual just by myself. And that is like, when my time comes, like, you're going to play well and you're going to play great, because that confidence that I have in myself.
Yeah.
And, that could be, a story down the road. If I play 15, 14, 17 years, like, never got a shot, like, how did you keep that faith? And for me, it's just like, hey, the Lord has its time. If my time never comes, I'm going to be totally fine with that, because I was able to make an impact far beyond the game.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I understand that completely. I guess that's a really good point too. And that goes for any position, right? Like, even if you're coming in as the backup running back or the third string, whatever, if you're not prepared to be a starter and play every game, then what's the point, right?
Yeah. And that's, some people have it differently. Some people are okay with, at least in this profession, like, sitting, and that's great. But my advice to those people are, if you're not motivated to do something and to become the very best, like, why do it? And that's how I was wired. That's how I'm wired. That's who I am. And if I do lose that desire and that fire to, like, want to play this game, like, I'm not just going to go through it to collect a check. I'm not going to do that. This is far bigger than football. And it's sort of the being able to use a platform like Chase Chats or like Sports Spectrum to spread the good word. And it goes way deeper than football.
How have you prepared yourself to handle the unknown that's coming up in the next few months here? We don't know what this is going to be like. We don't know if there'll be training camp or if there'll be mini camp, I should say, or training camp. We presume there might be training camp. And I know that a lot of our elected officials and even a lot of the leaders in and around football have said they want football to be played this year. It may not, who knows? But how have you been able to prepare yourself for the unknown over these next few months, knowing that it might not be like any offseason you've ever experienced?
Yeah. I'm by trade just like an eternal optimist. So I see the good in everything, probably to a fault. And my wife will sort of calm me down a little bit. Like, I do think there's going to be a football season. Is it going to be in front of fans? I don't know. But my job as the leader of this family, not only spiritually, but physically, is to be a provider. And the physical part of being a provider is, hey, do whatever you can to secure us housing. Do whatever you can to be able to move us out of this house. Do whatever you can to try to sell this house, or to make sure we're set financially in that aspect. And so to me right now, not only physically working out, but that is sort of my job and what I'm trying to do to take care of everything goes smoothly when we do get the, hey, okay, we're going back to the OTAs, which I don't know if OTAs are going to happen, or, hey, we're going and moving to training camp. We want to be set up and ready to roll, because a lot of people don't understand. Yeah. Oh, Chase is moving again and he's, signed another nice contract, great for him. It was a very difficult decision to leave Chicago and to not continue playing, but to move to another city, because you're uprooting. Okay, when it was just my wife, it was just her, but then it was Preston and now Parker. You're uprooting a family and sort of moving them to an unknown. So she carries a lot of that burden, and it's difficult and it's tough, but it's something that we've been able to sort of manage. And we've gotten pretty good at. We've gotten pretty good at the moving stuff. It seems like every time we move, we're just, donating more and more stuff. So we're just sort of slimming down a little bit, but it's difficult at times.
As we close here, why don't you leave us with some encouragement, maybe a scripture verse or something from the Bible, from God's word that's been, whether it's an encouragement for you over all of these years or something more recently, but share with us maybe what the Lord's been showing you in his word.
Yeah, as I've been getting up in the morning and doing my morning devotional, I've done something on the Bible app called Man Up. And I think it's perfect to sort of what we're talking here. It's a 4-week walk through, and it's geared toward men. Your walk with Christ, your walk in your family, your walk in your work. And right now I'm sort of on the work aspect. So it's funny that, we're having this chat, and it's just saying, like, anything you do for the glory of Christ, like everything, including your work. Right. And sometimes as a football player, you can say, how does that work? Like, I play a sport for a living, but it's so much more than that. It's maybe at the podium after you're done playing a game. It may be on the field. I know even Zach Ertz wears something like a scripture on his rubber bands or something like that to let people know, or outspoken on social media, that, hey, what I'm doing is way bigger than football. It's for the glory of God. And I think that's something that I'm learning and I'm going through. And it's just like opening up my eyes once again. I knew this, but it's just cool to sort of sit down, and especially the season of life we're in, where I don't know if we're going to work, So how does that go hand in hand? And so that's what we're working through right now.
He is Chase Daniel, Detroit Lions quarterback. It'll take a couple more months to get used to saying that, but check out the Chase Chats as well. His new show, it's on YouTube and on his social media. You can watch it at Chase Daniel on Twitter, at Chase_Daniel on Instagram. It's everywhere, and it's a lot of really good, fun stuff. Chase and his buddies really on his show. Hey, man, thanks so much for joining us, for sharing your story, and I'm sure we'll do it again sometime. All the best to you.
Thanks for having me on.
That was Chase Daniel. Many thanks to Chase for joining us here on Sports Spectrum. Check out his online show, Chase Chats, on Twitter and Instagram, and his YouTube channel. Just search Chase Chats, and you will be good to go. Great content there. Appreciate Chase. We also appreciate IJM for sponsoring and paying for this episode of Sports Spectrum. Check out IJM.org/TF and become a Freedom Partner and join the fight against violence and oppression. We'd also appreciate if you checked out our website, sportspectrum.com, the home base for all of our content here in the ministry of Sports Spectrum. Thanks so much for checking out our show. We'll see you next time with a brand new show right here on Sports Spectrum. Have a great rest of your day and stay safe.